Hello and welcome to another installment of Cosmic Co-Pilots. I'm Michael.
And I'm Lana.
Hey, and we're back to talk about the new moon in Leo slash solar eclipse. So Lana, I'm going to kick it over to you. Why don't you get this party started? Tell me what you found, and then we'll compare and
Okay.
contrast with what I found.
Well, I'm going to show you something real quick here. Okay. You see that? We have a kite. You see
I
that
do
kite right
see the
there?
kite. I do.
Right there. Okay. The kite is a significant pattern in the chart. But specifically, what's interesting, and there's several things that are fascinating about this eclipse that we're about to have. One, the chart itself is a locomotive chart with Pluto at the head of the train.
Right.
It's the engine.
So hold up for a second, because for folks who may not know, a locomotive chart. I know you said Pluto's at the head of the train, but what does that mean in general when using that term, a locomotive chart?
So a locomotive chart means all the planets are stacked up to where you're like looking at the opposite end of the engine of a train and it's coming at you full bore.
Okay, so it's like one after another, boom, 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 boom. Just okay, got it.
Yes, yes. Okay. I have a locomotive chart.
Really?
Does that give you any idea?
That's a surprise. I would never guess that.
Except that the engine of my train is Uranus. Shocking. Okay.
That's a hell of a train.
So
Back to the show.
so I lead with shock and awe.
Yep, yep.
Okay, and this particular train that's happening on the lunar eclipse is being led by Pluto. Okay, so that's the first thing. All right. You remember that the other thing is the kite. Okay, and the
Yep.
kite it's pulling together the significant points that make that kite that shape like that. Okay,
Sure.
and the very point of the kite, okay, is the direction that everything's leading in. So you remember when we talked about Bubba's bucket a few weeks ago?
Yes, basket,
Okay.
basket. Come on, get the terminology right. It's Bubba's
Okay.
basket, not
It's
Bubba's bucket.
Bubba. He's got a bucket.
All right.
Okay. He
Yeah,
doesn't
you're
have
right.
a
He probably does have
basket.
he's not carrying no basket. Carrying
You
a
remember
bucket.
when I talked about it was almost like we were being pulled back to be catapulted?
Yep.
Okay. This is the same energy. Okay. This kite is like forming that pullback effect to spring to the very tip of the kite. All right. So now I'm going to tell you that at not at the very base point, but one of the significant points. We got two significant signatures going. We've got a grand trine in
Right.
air, okay, and then we've got this kite. All right. So the grand trine in air, we have Venus, which has moved into Libra to now marry up with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus in Gemini. So that has to do with the value systems. Venus is your value systems. I know most people associate with beauty, femininity, blah, blah, blah. In reality, it's our value systems. It's what do we hold near and dear to our heart? What's important to us in terms of the way we live our lives? What do we want to surround ourselves with? Okay, on a day-to-day basis, and it's in Libra, and we've had the Uranian energy in Gemini take us off into unknown charted territory.
Right.
Okay,
New stuff, turning over the rocks. Let's see what's out there.
right, and then we've got Pluto, which has been like the phoenix, which is like, okay, let's tear down what's not working in air, okay, because it's in Aquarius, and let's rebuild for the benefit of the collective, all right, because Aquarius rules the masses,
Sure.
the uniqueness, individuality, and now you've got Libra coming into play, okay, and Libra is, I'm going to say this, an evolved Libran likes to resolve things where there's no conflict.
Sure.
An
Yeah. Sure.
unevolved, an unevolved Libran likes to be passive aggressive and will avoid conflict at any expense. Okay, but then the minute that you think you've got an agreement with him, they walk behind you and they say just the opposite thing. Now that's an unevolved Libran. Okay, and I bring that up because I don't believe in good or bad, and I do believe that there's always a dark shadow expression and a light expression that takes place. Okay, so when you're looking at this energy, I don't want you to think it's all roses and bubble baths and candles. Okay, there is the potential with now our individual value systems coming into play with this disruptive energy that we've had of people either having a passive aggressive attitude about it disrupting their day-to-day harmony, okay, their balance. The Libran is the balance. Or there is the light side of it, which is says, okay, let's actually push this forward and come into it in a new way. All right. So it could go either way. It could go either way. I anticipate that it would go either way.
Let me jump in there with something on Libra that I've recognized through my work in astrology and just with clients and the collective in general. A lot of times people will think Libra energy is, oh yes, the perfect balance. But remember, if you've ever stepped on one of those scales that you've got to slide the little doohickey on, the thing is going boing, 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 until it finds its equilibrium. So sometimes if someone has a lot of Libra placements, you might think, oh, well, they're going to be super balanced. I've actually seen the opposite of my clients, where they may be striving for that balance, but they can have a lot of things out of whack until they get there. And that's their lesson to learn, if you want to look at it from a consciousness perspective. Would you concur with that? I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, not that you would ever allow me to, but, just for the sake of clarity.
Yes, I concur with that completely, because I think that's what gives that the evolved approach versus a devolved approach.
Yeah, and that's what got me thinking of that, as you were saying, because I've never heard it phrased that way, an evolved versus unevolved. And I guess that could apply to any sign, really.
It does.
Has the sign evolved or not? So, and I don't primarily focus on signs in my work, but that holds up, and it could probably be applied to planets. But anyways, I digress. I'm stealing your time.
That's okay. I think that sometimes Librans get, certain planets will get hit extra hard because, like Scorpios, they tend to want to paint Scorpios in a corner.
Yeah.
Okay. When in fact, an evolved Scorpio is probably one of the most in-depth persons that you'll ever meet.
Yeah, depth is all about Scorpio for sure.
Yeah. So I want to paint a balanced picture. I'm just saying that with this transit, you've got this trine energy that could help move it forward. Okay. But there are people who are going to want to preserve the status quo. Okay. And they're going to probably work against this. And I bring that up because at the tip of the kite,
Yep.
all right, is Mars in Cancer conjunct Ceres, Ceres, which is an asteroid in Cancer. Now, I'm just going to tell you that's some badass mama jama energy. Okay. Mars in Cancer, to me, is probably one of the most difficult places for Mars. It's in Cancer, which is emotions. It's personal protectivity. Okay. It's defensiveness in a shadow type deal. In a non-shadow type, think about it. Cancer rules the crab. So they're going to be emotional, but they're going to be very protective about how they express those emotions. And they might, come at you kind of like a crab.
Yeah.
Okay. So, that's not a fun place for Mars to be.
Yeah.
All right. It's not its natural place to be. With it being conjunct Ceres, and Ceres is something that I really have a lot of affinity with Ceres. I've done a lot of study because it represents the maternal energy, which is also in keeping with Cancer because it's the moon, feminine, okay? but it is the maternal energy of not just what you would think of in terms of nourishment, food, caring for. It's also the maternal energy that allows growth for the child, okay? But it's also the one that cuts the umbilical cord. So sometimes growth is some difficult lessons,
Oh, sure.
okay? And oftentimes I've seen Sarah's manifest in that way. So what is really pinging me with this is that I think there's going to be some counter forces out there with this that are causing people to confront what are we being defensive about emotionally? What are we trying to protect emotionally? Because remember, eclipses are about shaking you loose,
Yeah.
okay, to make change. They are not about the status quo. They are about change, change, change. And we'll probably see that change in the next 6 months or so because they all have a season to the eclipses.
Sure.
By
Yeah, right.
virtue,
And let's just go on record and saying we're not expecting the Earth to come to a grinding halt on the day of the eclipse. That's no, that's
no,
not how this works.
no,
No.
but I think there's going to be a lot of issues that come up that relate to personal boundaries, personal value systems,
Right.
personal protection, somewhat defensiveness kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I think there's going to be a lot of lessons that come up with that. And when you've got Pluto in Aquarius at the other end of all this, that is saying, what ideas are you married to that you're sacrificing your authenticity for?
Yeah.
Because Pluto is conjunct with the asteroid Juno, and Juno represents marriage. So it's at this
So what
particular
are you
point.
wedded to? It doesn't have to
What
be
are
a
you wed
person.
to? What are
Yeah.
you committed to?
Yeah.
Okay. And how does it interfere with you being authentic, true to yourself? All right. So you've got these personal protective boundaries that are manifesting with Mars and Ceres in Cancer. And then you've got the Libra value systems that are making this trine with this energy. So I think it's going to stir up some shit for some people, is what I think.
Interestingly enough, August, September, October, and November, we've got midterm elections coming up, and I'm certainly not a political astrologer, but it's interesting that this is the prelude, and potentially that energy can get popping, and things could get very interesting come November, and that's about as close to that as I want to get. But ideas across the board, maybe given a pressure test. What is it that you're willing to go to the mat on? And we may discover that things that we were willing to go to the mat on are like, well, maybe that's not as important as I thought. Or maybe it is. I don't know. I mean,
Well, I don't know if you noticed or not. I'm of the age that I pay attention to this, but the big beautiful bill is about to cut Medicare by as much as
yeah,
20,
I, I, I
25%.
have seen that. Yes. Yeah. That's a big thing that is probably about to get, if it hasn't already, a lot more
It's
traction.
gonna it's gonna get a lot more traction before the
Yeah.
election.
Yeah, exactly.
And that has directly to do with everything that's Cancerian at
Yeah.
home,
Protection. Sure.
protection, your medical bills. Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, it's just right there. So it could get kind of interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
All
what
right.
did you find out from the VA standpoint?
So, what I looked at, and for those who are astrologically into this sort of stuff and are looking at charts, I'm also looking at the connection of the planets that are forming kind of the kite, but in a different way. So here's what caught my eye initially. And remember, we use tighter orbs, so I'm looking at this through a slightly different lens. But what am I looking at here? Let me look at my notes because I took a whole bunch here. I'm looking at these four planets: Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Pluto. So now if you look at that on the chart, that's also kind of a kite, but in a different direction. And I wasn't thinking officially kite. And, I'm not too good at memorizing the pattern names and whatnot. Because it all, for me, it comes down to the planets.
So
So
can I interrupt you for one quick
please,
second?
yeah,
So Mercury, and I forgot to say this, Mercury is directionally opposed Pluto
yep,
in Leo.
yep,
Okay? So all those planets you just mentioned are
yep,
all setting up in this typical Western astrology formation.
yeah.
So bravo. Bravo.
So, so to extend that, because you set the table beautifully for me here, Mercury and Pluto, big ideas, wild ideas, potentially revolutionary, let's blow it out of the water type of ideas. And remember, eclipses, well, new moons are where things get started, eclipses turbocharge it. So it'll be interesting to see from that perspective, just looking at those two planets, what comes down the pike for the collective over the next 6 months. Personally, this could be the time when you end up doing something that you've been thinking about or got inspired to do, and then you finally give it some legs. But the combination of Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Pluto brings excitement, intensity, creativity, invention, an appetite for discovery. It's almost like, and this just runs parallel to what you were saying. Well, the status quo ain't working anymore. What are we going to do to shake it up? Now, you can look at that on a global level, and you can look at it at what you're doing in your house when you're talking with your partner, significant other, or whatever, or you can look at it as far as your own daily routines. What may be radical that's coming in, and I don't mean radical as, like we're here just for the sake of being well, hell, a shit disturber. Just someone to come in and take things up. Well, we're not talking about that, but it's unusual, it's new, it's creative, and the possibilities now get opened up. Where you think, well, there's only two choices, A and B. Well, maybe there's a D, an F, an H, a J, and a Z choice that maybe we're just not quite aware of. So that energy, I think, heightens us to be open to new things. And even though we're comfortable in certain areas, new stuff may be showing up that invigorates us and that excites us. Now, bringing it back to Leo, because, a lot of people, the signs certainly provide these benchmarks and guideposts. Leo, in the lens of vibrational astrology, is about individuation. It's not about saying, screw you, it's all about me. That's not what we're talking about. But what we are talking about is how are we going to do things our way? Yeah, some Leos want the spotlight and the center of attention and all that. But according to the data, Leos and Leo energy are about figuring out how I can put my little thumbprint on something, whatever that is. Maybe the way you design your house, maybe something at work, maybe the way that you show up to the bake sale and you bring these, donuts that have been proofed for 3 days and there's this yeast. It's like, what is your opportunity to figure out how to put your spin on something that is important to you, and how that can show up? It's as infinite as there are people in the world.
It's always about the donuts with you, isn't it? It's
Always,
always
well,
about.
yeah,
I
you can't
know,
see
I
them, but they're off
know, I
screen. Yeah.
know, I
Well, here
know.
now I feel
Well,
compelled. Would you like a nice? Would you like a nice chocolate lane?
so the one thing that I want to add on here is that everybody was like, well, when Bubba's bucket happens,
Oh yeah, yeah. You notice how fast that's gone now? Everyone's on to the next
yeah,
hype. It's like,
everybody's like, but I want to make up a very valid point here, okay? All of the same planets are involved except that now Mercury and Venus, the personal planets,
yep,
have stepped up to join those planets. So the point I'm making is, we live in a society where instant gratification takes too long.
yeah,
Okay? People expect immediate results, right? this is a continuation of what that energy started. And I think that when we get to the end of this cycle, and we've got for the next 18 months, we're going to be in a very similar eclipse cycle with Aquarius and Leo and a few other planets that are along this bucket, okay, for lack of better words.
Yeah.
I think you're going to find in retrospect that more shit happened relative to Bubba's bucket than people were willing to acknowledge that it was at the time because they didn't see a big bang.
Well, yeah, exactly. It goes back to the analogy. If you plant the seed today, you can go in the yard and look tomorrow. You're not going to see
Right,
anything.
right. But I think that this eclipse is the
Yep.
beginning of personalizing it because it is
Okay.
bringing in Mercury and Venus, and
Yeah.
those are considered personal planets. They're not considered generational big boy planets
Right.
like Jupiter and Saturn and Uranus and Pluto. Okay? So I really think that we are starting to step into it. Now, one other thing I want to say that's very important,
Yeah.
and then I'll shut up for a minute, but
Yeah. All right. Because you're
Mars,
stealing my time, lady.
I know
You're
I
stealing
am.
my.
I know, but you stole my time too, so I don't even want to hear about it. Mars, right now, when this eclipse happens, Mars is technically out of bounds. And
Oh, see, I didn't. I don't normally look at out of bounds stuff, but I know that that's a core part of your work. So tell us
ooh,
about out of bounds.
so you know I'm all about the out of bounds stuff. So
Well,
it
you
yeah.
are out of bounds.
So if this, so for our viewers out there, if this is
Yes.
planet Earth, okay, the equator is along this center line where the blue meets the red, okay? Most of the planets, when they go across the Earth, they go in a path that's 23 degrees up from the equator and 23 degrees down, okay? Now remember, you got 90 degrees to the poles
Yeah.
either way. So most of the planets go within that 23 above
Yep.
or below the equator or that total of 46 degrees. Okay? When a planet falls beyond that 23 degrees, it's called out of bounds. What it does is it amplifies the energy. It's like taking, say you play guitar and you're in your den and you plug it into your amp at home. It's like taking that and plugging it into a Billie Eilish concert amp.
Oh wow. Or you're taking me back. This is way before my time, but like to the Grateful Dead, the wall of sound where they'd lug all those speakers. Yeah. Yeah.
That is what out of bounds does. Is it
Okay.
amplify and it's going to be out of bounds in Mars.
So that's a lot of energy, at least from the VA perspective, where it's just like, I mean, energy from the stand, it's all energy, but action. Let's do something.
Let's
Let's
do
make something
something.
happen. Let's not wait around. Now's the time to have the rubber meet the road and put the action behind it.
I wouldn't be at all surprised to see, and I'm probably stepping out there too far, but I wouldn't be at all surprised to see a bunch of protests over Medicare. You
Now
might
that's
see a bunch of
interesting.
old people walking in the streets, okay?
The beautiful thing about putting these out there and letting them stay on the internet forever, because the internet is forever, whether you like it or not, is we can come back and look and see what ends up
Right,
happening. You know,
right.
there's one other piece I want to mention that you hadn't mentioned, but I'm sure you probably took a look at it. And there's a bunch of other minor aspects. I'm not going to dive into all that. But there's one other thing that I think is important to key in here, and that is the South Node. Now, we use the nodes in vibrational astrology. They're not a focal point, but when they're important, they're important. And that's basically how I approach all of this. And the thing to be aware of is you've got Sun and Moon conjunct sitting at 20 degrees of Leo. That's when your new moon starts. Well, at 29 degrees of Leo is the South Node. So different systems of astrology assign different meanings to the nodes. All I can share with you is VA's perspective, and then you can give a little contrast and color on this if you want. And the way VA looks at the nodes is it's sort of like it's your history, it's where you got the ball rolling, it's the source, and you got to use that to get you to the North Node, which is your destination in life. So here's an analogy, because I love me a good analogy. Imagine, and this kind of works a little in reverse, so, but you'll be able to put this together. Imagine you've got a source of water high up in the mountains, and that water is going all the way down through little streams and little lakes and what have you, and it kind of runs and it takes its course, and then ultimately it ends up someplace, the ocean. Well, the ocean could be considered your north node. It's the destination or what you're aspiring to. So even though it's from running high to low, think of the mountain source point as the south node, bringing us to the north node, which is on the opposite side. Well, that's Aquarius. When we look at where the node is now, it's sort of like coming from me, focused on as an individual, Leo, to how do we use what we've helped protect ourselves, advance ourselves, whatever you want to frame it like. And then how do we work with that to make it bigger and hit the collective? Because the nodes are always going to be 180 degrees apart. That's just the geometry of it. And the north node is currently sitting, well, will be sitting in Aquarius at 29 degrees. So there's another layer there. I don't think it radically shifts the interpretation, but my understanding of the nodes, and I can see this in my own life, and there's probably a forthcoming article on this, whereas it's not like you got to escape your past. It's not like you're running away from where you got started, but how do you use that now? And in my example, it's like, my path started with studying psychology, and that's right around the same time as when I discovered astrology, and then I did therapeutic work for a while. Then I got into the assessment side of things, and the whole time I'm performing as a mentalist and doing all this stuff. I still do all those things to this day, and it's all from the source of that Leo individuation of setting myself apart from the rest of the pack. And then now I'm using all of those skills and tools and taking them to the masses with there you go. So
For the collective.
for the collective, it's not about me on stage anymore, although that's fun sometimes, but it's how do I use those skills
Right.
and experiences and things that I've had an opportunity to run into that started with the South Node to then take that journey. Other systems talk about karma and all that, and that's cool. No shade there. But in VA, it's like, here's the things that made you who you are. Now what are you going to do with them?
Well, and that message is the same in Western astrology, okay, in terms of how we look at the nodes. But it's also the nodes are also amplifying the energy going from Mercury and Leo to opposing it, Pluto and Aquarius. So there's a double hit.
Yeah.
There's a double hit. And the note, it's interesting, and I could do a whole thing on this, and maybe we need to do a whole bit, like an hour-long thing on the nodes. But I just started taking, started doing research where I'm investigating historically how do the nodes interplay, okay, in different transits
Okay.
that I've
Yep.
had in my life. And this is a graphical ephemeris of certain years, like 2026 to 2028. And I'm going through knowing that certain things have happened for me and looking to see where the nodes were in retrospect to the other planets. And there's starting to be a little bit of a pattern. It seems that it's a personal impact, that the nodes, because they're associated with the moon,
Yep.
because they are the nodes of the moon, okay? And it's always about balancing that energy. There seems to be something there. I'm going to be very interested to see if it pans out completely. But I think that's a very important point to bring up, and I'm glad that you did, because it is related to that Leo Aquarius axis that we've got working for ourselves, that we're going to have working for ourselves for most of this year.
Well, I'm thrilled about it because, full disclosure, this is hitting my first house, and I'm a Leo ascendant. So
No.
listen, I got big plans, baby. I got stuff in the hopper. And that's, people say, well, how do you use astrology? This is how I'm using astrology. I see this timing opportunity that started when when Jupiter hit Leo back in the end of July. And it's going to hang out there for a year. And we've got the eclipse there. It's like, all right, Spermuli, if you got plans, now's your time to execute because everyone can be looking at you. Just make sure you give them something good to look at. And I'm not talking physically because that ship has sailed, but I'm talking about something that is going to be practical, usable, what have you. So that's how you use astrology. I'm not sitting here going, oh, not that there's anything wrong with that. I've got stuff happening and I got a couple of projects I'm very excited about. I'm not quite ready to pull the veil back on yet, but soon, very soon.
I've got a couple of projects I'm working on too, baby.
Yeah, and you don't have to have Leo in your first house. Wherever Leo is in your chart, and wherever this eclipse is happening.
Or wherever Aquarius is, because Aquarius is on the other end.
It's connected.
Okay.
So there's multiple layers to this. I just don't want people to think, well, I don't have Leo sitting in my first house.
Right.
No,
you can have Aquarius in a significant part of your chart, like I have Aquarius midheaven.
Yeah.
So that's with the public sector. So
Right.
all of a sudden, people are wondering, everybody out there that's been watching probably going, who the hell is this bitch? Because I just popped out of nowhere. Very Aquarian, very Uranian, okay? Just
Sort of like showing up to a committee meeting and people saying, who are you?
who are you?
Where did you come from? And what are you all about?
So yeah, to that point, if you've got Leo or Aquarius in your chart, you're probably having quite a bit of activity going on.
Well, you better have Leo and Aquarius in your chart somewhere, otherwise you're looking at a dysfunctional wheel. I mean, we've got it all.
Well, I know, but
you left the door open.
You know what I mean, smart ass.
I do. All right, this is probably way longer than it needed to be.
Yeah, we're at 35 minutes.
All right, then let's end this here. How do people find you if they're curious about how this is all showing up for them and in their own? Oh, look at that. There's a kitty. Hey, kitty.
Say hi, Lizzie. Say hi.
Here's me. Oh,
She
yeah.
says no.
That's staying. Oh, no, she's like, oh, that's it. You're stuck now for the duration.
I'm stuck now, yeah.
How do people find you if they want to know more?
You go to, I told you, Uranus is my favorite planet, and it's my lead train element in my chart. So you go to upuranus.com, and I would expect you to laugh when you do, okay?
Excellent.
upuranus.com, and you can find me there.
Perfect. Excellent. And if you want to know more about my work and what I do, you can visit me at blueridgeastrology.com. That's blueridgeastrology.com. And I'm all over social media on the platform of your choice under the same moniker at blueridgeastrology.com. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you soon for another installment of Cosmic Co-Pilots whenever we get around to it, because we don't commit to stuff like that. It doesn't work with our style, and that's okay. You all have a great eclipse. We'll see you next time.
See y'all.